Hey guys, welcome back to another video of Chris and Andreas Explain. We are in Whistler, the Canadian home of snowboarding in Comore Sports. And speaking of snowboarding, we just came back from snowboarding 2 days ago.
Yeah man, it was awesome!
It was so good.
It was our second week in a row, where the first week was a pretty pathetic attempt.
Which, just to give some reference, it is October 21st.
The stoke levels in the village are at maximum, and today we actually woke up to snow on the valley floor.
And speaking about snowboarding, explaining snowboarding, this video we're going to be talking about edge technology. So we're going to talk about the increase in edge technology, where it's gone from being a simple edge to, I don't know, being all kinds of wacky stuff in there.
You know, the advent of more contact points and what that does to the snowboard and the rideability and how it feels on both powder and groomers.
When it was the very simple edges in both skis and snowboards, skiers would sometimes laugh at snowboarders because we just had this one edge, and if we would come across something icy, you know, your board would slide out. If something would come and just, you know, hit the edge, break the pressure, you would lose all of your edge. The skier could have one of his skis go out and he's got that second ski, that extra edge.
So the edge that we're utilizing at any given point needs to have a little bit more technology to hold on.
Andreas, how did we start to see the inception of this edge technology?
So basically, rockered snowboards came into the scene, and rockered snowboards, by their very nature, make less contact with the snow.
Yeah.
Even though rockered snowboards helped to increase your turning initiation and your float, it definitely decreased your edge stability. Companies like Lib Tech quickly had to find a way to make those rockered profiles slightly more aggressive in their edge technologies so that they would have better grip. When rockered snowboards first came out, like, you could tell the difference between a board that had a Magne-traction or some type of edge technology versus a rockered snowboard that didn't. Rockered snowboards that had no edge technology were like the washiest, scariest boards to ride, especially in icy conditions. It's like, think of the difference between a butter knife and a steak knife. A butter knife, it's not going to cut and grip as well as a serrated knife would. So if you're trying to cut into a turkey, you want a serrated knife that has way more of that serradation.
An electric one.
Can you imagine if that's the future of snowboarding? An electric turkey blade snowboard edge? Yeah, Lib Tech says that Magne-traction turns powder into ice.
Doesn't. It turns ice into hard pack groomers.
I would say that it just makes ice manageable.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ice into powder is one of the sillier phrases, but it's fine. It sounds great, and we'll let them off because Magne-traction is an awesome piece of technology. I actually ride it like almost every day. My daily driver is the t.rice, and that has Magne-traction on it, and I love it.
And the t.rice has a more aggressive Magne-traction with more undulations than, let's say, a board that doesn't need as much grip that may be cambered, for example.
Yeah, so talking about the difference between camber and rocker boards or hybrid boards that have Magne-traction, because I first noticed it on the Lib Tech E-Jack knife.
The E-Jack knife, yeah, Eric Jackson's pro model.
Yeah, that's the one. That one you can see, because it is more camber in it, that the Magne-traction, the serration, it mellows out in the middle and then it gets more aggressive on the edges. But when you look at one of their more rocker dominated boards, it's more consistent throughout the board. And we're going to move on to a slight difference that you see when companies apply the technology, where you have a lot of them, especially the Lib Tech, going towards the leading out, the serration, the extrusion of the snowboard. So you can see it in the Arbor Westmark, and same with the Nitros as well, with the Nitro drop that we're talking about, where it's like the board is sticking out a bit. There's an extension, a protrusion of the snowboard that shouldn't really be there, and that is what is causing the grip. Whereas with the with the underbite and the midbite, that is almost like an intrusion where it's cutting in, right? So it actually should be out further, and by cutting in, it's segmenting, it's creating more contact points by kind of separating the parts of the edges. So it's cool they have like the different styles of contact points.
It's like a bump versus a dent.
Mm-hmm, exactly. So just briefly, why you would or wouldn't want Magne-traction, I think you're just getting on it there. Because of that serrated nature, once you start to bend the edge, when the snowboard is bending through the turn, you get a little bit more resistance. It's not going to be as straight a line, and so it might not feel as smooth, as pure of a turn. It might not feel like as pure of a turn as
like a
radial. Yeah,
side
exactly.
cut. Yeah, and so that kind of gets into the next point where, you know, multiple different companies decided to play with edge technologies.
Yeah, it's kind of like a bit of a free-for-all after Lib Tech. Like
yeah.
Everybody wanted to do their own unique style.
You know, if you're after a grippier feel, then there are more aggressive edge technologies like a 7-point Magne-traction. Or if you want a board that doesn't feel as grippy, that maybe doesn't slow you down as much at higher speeds, then you get something that doesn't have as much of an aggressive edge technology, kind of like Frostbite edges. Yeah, so Burton is using Frostbite edges, and it's one of those edge technologies that I would say is less obvious than Magne-traction, for example.
Visibly it is.
Yeah, visibly when you look at it, especially from afar, you wouldn't know that it's utilizing any kind of edge tech. Essentially what's going on here is if you were to look at the board directly down the sidewall of the board, you would see that underneath the insert areas where your binding would go, the sidewalls are actually angled a little bit more aggressively. They have more of a slant. Versus in the other areas of the snowboard where your bindings aren't going to be delivering that pressure, the sidewall actually straightens out and becomes just more vertical. I would say that I hardly notice Frostbite edges. I'm sure that it's helping me in those icy conditions, but I don't actually feel them. Versus with a Magne-traction snowboard, for example, I can actually feel that board like biting in and slightly slowing me down. In icy conditions, I like going a little bit slower. I feel like that extra bite gives me way more control.
Yeah, I think it's going to depend on what type of terrain you're riding. I think yourself, like myself, we're in those situations where it's good to have that mag.
Yeah, and I think
you want to be holding on.
And I think another important point is that, like, most of these edge technologies, you won't feel the difference when the board is in soft snow or when the board is in powder. Like, I don't feel Magne-traction at all when I'm in powder or when I'm in soft snow conditions. I only notice it when I'm on hard pack or on ice. And, like, we both use Magne-traction and still go pretty fast.
Yeah, no, it's sweet.
I think a good example is our Revelstoke videos. We both, like, just ripped down an icy groomer in Revy.
Yeah.
Still using that full bitey mag.
I would like to have that pure rideability for those days when the conditions were perfect for it, but here in Whistler, conditions vary all the time, so you need a snowboard that can handle that, and that's basically what we've lent towards.
If the hill was always perfect groomered corduroy laps,
alive with the sound of music,
then you wouldn't need edge technologies. But, you know, alas, this is not the case, and the conditions are varying.
Nitro
power pods, bro.
Has their power pods. So basically, we were talking about similar things in our side cut video, which you guys should definitely check out if you haven't already. But here they have a very big side cut just here and just here. So these are massive circles. These make it easier to initiate the turn, a little bit looser, you know, nice kind of fun feel to it. And then in the middle here, they got a more aggressive one. And so this is going to give you more power in the middle of the turn. But in the transition, they've made the transition less blended. And so that transition now is extra contact points. So that's kind of the blending of the two. And I can't remember, but somebody was just asking about this board, and yeah, it does look like a super nice board. Other brands?
We didn't even talk about, we didn't even talk about Midbite technology.
Yeah, kind of one of the ones that we wanted to look at because what they've done is it's not really blended, like the Nitro Cannon one that we've ridden a lot, that is two different side cuts that are blended together to give you a nice easy initiation, more pop on the outside, and then has kind of really segmented it, so those contact points are really sticking out. And let's look at some boards. So, tell us about this snowboard.
So one of the cool things that Yes is doing with their Midbite technology is, well, first of all, you can really see it on this board. This board's an asymmetric board, so it's an asymmetric Midbite, and it's really actually quite accentuated. You can see it when you look at it. But the cool thing about what this achieves is in the midsection of the board, where it's actually narrower, you get way faster edge-to-edge transitioning. So the board is like super agile for when you're in the park, for example, and you're moving feature to feature. Then when you move out to the tip and the tail of the board actually increases in width. And so what that does is it gives you better flotation in the deeper snow and better grip in the tip and the tail. By utilizing that Midbite technology here, you can see that your first contact point would be up here in your tip, and then as it comes in, we're getting another contact point here as the board dips into this more aggressive cut, and then your third contact point here at the end of that dip, and finally your fourth contact point in the tail of the board.
Sweet. Cool. And then another one of Yes's boards, it's incorporating some cool technology in it. I mean, it's got an awesome pintail for one. This has the tapered underbite, so it's a little bit different than the midbite. Basically, it gets more aggressive towards the tail, and the idea of the underbite is, I don't want to hit you in the head, at 2 points. So the first one is just in front of your front insert point, and then the rear one is basically lined up with your rear insert point there. They've just kind of pulled the edge in. And what it does is it creates a break in the edge, and it creates a point where you have a nice continuous edge hold here, you have a little break, and then you have a good continuous edge hold here. And so by segmenting it, if you kind of have an issue here or an issue here, it shouldn't affect the other ones, right? It's kind of like the Titanic problem in some of the rooms. They can seal them off, and then it protects the rest of the ship from sinking. It's not just increasing the amount of points you have in contact with the snow, it's also affecting the ride, which is kind of cool. One of the natures of the tapered underbite, everything's kind of like pushed towards the tail, and so when you go into a turn, it's kind of chundery, it's not the greatest contact. You don't need as much grip, as much grab on the front of the board. You really want it on the back of the board when you're coming out of the turn. So with that tapered underbite, you have, extra contact points, boom, boom, like right in this area here, whereas at the front it's much more spaced out. So it's got a lot more grip in the tail, it's going to be a lot more give, a lot more push out through the end of the turns. So yeah, it's kind of like, see how this board's made for that old mountainy shredding.
I got to try the tapered underbite side cut technology. And I guess one of the characteristics of a tapered snowboard is that it feels more turnable, kind of like a pintail skateboard. One of the downsides, though, is because the tail is narrower, you don't have as much power in the tail. It doesn't hold on as well as a normal twin snowboard. So by adding in that extra bit of contact in the tail there, you get a tail that still feels really whippy and still rebounds you out of a turn. They're adding more contact where you need it in the board, and otherwise, it's not so much.
Sweet.
So unlike a Lib Tech board that has that continuous edge technology happening, Yes is trying to specify points of interest on the board.
Points of interest are useful. I think we covered most of the brands. You do have things like Bataleon is using their 3BT, and that almost decreases the amount of contact the edge has on the bottom of the snowboard.
Yeah, like triple base technology is making the board less catchy in the contact points. So for example, if you're in powder where you want that board to really plane out, that's a good thing. Or if you're in the park where you want your board to feel, a little bit looser, that's sort of the same reason why people will detune their edges.
Yeah.
So that they feel less grip in certain areas.
And same for all those spooned out Jones and the like. It's quite interesting how you see a lot more extremes of the technologies appearing more because there's more niche markets
Some technologies are helping to increase your edge hold, and other technologies are working to decrease the edge hold, depending on what the purpose of the board is for.
Where do you think we're going from here? What's next?
I think we're going to see more... it's hard to know, Chris. I like my idea about the electric turkey knife edge. Yeah, I don't know, Chris. I don't know where the contact point technology is going. I mean, it's weird because like some things that we're seeing in the industry are moving back towards like the classic traditional way of snowboarding.
Yeah, we're looking right now at the dance hall.
And that's just using, just a classic radial side cut versus companies like Lib Tech that are really trying to push the envelope of how far they can take the technology. You know, they're adding all kinds of contact points to really give you that grip because their boards have typically more of that rockered profile. I think it's like when you look at any of these technologies, it's just one element of many that are coming into the way that board is going to ride. So like one of the things that we talked about earlier was a cambered board has way more stability than a rockered board. With a cambered board, you don't need as many contact points to feel as stable on ice. Versus with a rockered board, you're going to need way more contact points to feel that grip. So it always just comes into one of the overall characteristics of the board, along with the profile, along with the overall shape, along with the flex.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't overthink it, but it's nice to know that there are added technologies going into giving you better grip.
If you were to buy a new snowboard, Andreas, that you don't currently own...
Whistler is so varying, you know? It would be nice if every day was a powder day, but that's not the case, and there's many a time where I'm going down the backside into Cadenwood, down some cat track that's, like, literally jangled up icy debris. I like having that, you know, extra grip that comes from Magne-traction.
The de-jangler.
Yeah, it just really does help you have extra stability when you need it. And when you don't need it, I don't really feel it.
Thank you for watching. Thank you, Andreas, so much for coming down here and being such a dude. Thank you to Mr. Comore. I know he's looking down on us right now. He just lives upstairs, that's why. We got the snowboard lineup coming soon. This store is filling up with 2021 snowboards.
And the hype is definitely frothing at the mouth because we've had that fresh snowfall in the village, and it's incredibly early in the season to see snow on the ground in the village.
So if you guys did enjoy this video, then please like, share, subscribe. Andreas's info is going to be at the end. There's going to be a big photo of him with a crazy beard. Andreas, what's coming up next to put you on the spot?
Next we're doing Camber Profiles Part 2, because it seems that in my first video explaining Camber Profiles, people were not satisfied with the 5 or 6 examples that we gave. They wanted to hear about more. They wanted to know all of the various camber profiles. So we went into depth, and we went and sought out some rare ones, and yeah, that's going to be the next video.
I see similar things happening with this video. Cool. Well, I hope you guys join us for the next video. We're going to have links for the snowboards down in the description as well. And if you guys are going to buy anything online,
just be like, guys, don't buy online. Buy things from your local store.
Good.
But if you don't have a local store, then buy things online. Because what are you going to do?
Links for all the snowboards below. Doesn't affect the price for you guys, but it helps us to bring you more videos and to go snowboarding through this year.
Don't forget to check out our Instagrams as well. I'm Schubert_art. And Chris is Chris the Mountain Man. And also, if you want to follow Dot the Adventure Dog, well, that's just a great Instagram account to follow as well.
Well, thank you again for coming out. Blessings to you. Happy Halloween. Hopefully you guys stay safe out there, and we'll see you on the slopes at some point this year.
Godspeed, everyone. And to all a good night.
Ta-ra!